Hello friends, and welcome to the Hanged Man in the Moon. If this is your first time here, welcome. Thank you for coming. I'm pleased to meet you. If you've been here before, thank you for returning. I'm truly honored. The title for this week's video is Incorporating and Incarnating Insight. Incorporating, to bring into the body, to digest and make part of ourselves. Incarnating, to bring into flesh, to manifest. So, incorporating and incarnating insight. It's a very heavy topic. It's a very deep topic, and it's probably going to take a while. So, friends, get comfortable. This is going to be a kind of meditation into this topic. And as usual, I've got an oracle and tarot spread laid out, so let's hunker in and take a look. Friends, you can see I'm using the same set of cards as I used last week. The soul cards, 1 and 2 together, and I have my inquiry cards laid out, and I'm using the Jonasa Jaus Tarot to answer the questions on those inquiry cards. And if you're curious about those decks, as always, there will be information at the end of the video as to who the creators are, and below in the description there will be links so that you can go purchase the decks that are still available if you're interested. So friends, let's take a look at the first line of these cards, the soul cards, the very soulful message from these oracle cards. Aren't these cards beautiful? These two decks together make a very soulful and insightful reading. So we have 5 cards laid out, and they form a kind of story. Looking at the story step by step, this is what has come to me. The first card reminds me that there are times when we feel like our eyes have been deliberately covered by spirit or by the divine. That the divine creator has deliberately prevented us from seeing into either the realm of spirit or into the future. Have you ever felt that? Have you felt like your eyes have been shut or have been closed? Have you felt that it's a little unfair, perhaps, that spirit can see us so clearly, but we can't see them or spirit as clearly? There may be a reason for our not being able to see that clearly into other realms. For most of us. For me, especially, but for most of us. The next card reminds us that there are times when it feels like there is, like I said, a veil before us, a veil which is preventing us from seeing clearly. We get perhaps glimpses. It's not a wall, it's not a barricade, but a veil through which we see very dimly. And we find ourselves pushing at that veil, trying to get through that veil, trying to open that veil so that we get a clearer vision of whatever we're trying to see. Again, whether it be spirit or the future. Have you ever had that experience where that is what you're trying to do? That you're trying to clear the veil, or perhaps open a path or open space in a foggy room. The next card reminds me that it is not always there. There are times when we have insight, sudden flashes of insight, perhaps into the realm of spirit, or sudden flashes of insight into the immensity of the divine, or sudden flashes of insight into the future. And oftentimes when we do break through that veil, we are knocked down. We are bowled over by the immensity, by the magnitude of that vision. And friends, here is a little trigger alert. I'm going to go into the Bible for just a minute. That's perhaps something that you're not expecting here, but these first three cards reminded me of something that I had heard. So I went onto the internet and searched it because it was such a veiled, indistinct memory. And what I was remembering was a mirror or a window darkly. And so I found it and realized it was a passage from the Bible. Yeah? And okay, I've got it printed out here because I want to be sure that I'm reading this clearly and correctly. The passage that I was vaguely remembering was, "For now we see through a glass darkly." For now we see through a glass darkly. Now, that might be difficult to understand because it's not very modern English. So I went and I looked up the same passages in a more modern translation of the Bible, a more easy to understand for modern English speakers translation. And this is from the New American Revised Edition. I'll put the edition name at the bottom. That has suddenly flown out of my mind. But here it goes. This is from 1 Corinthians chapter 13. Let me read the whole thing and I'll break it down for you. Love never fails. If there are prophecies, they will be brought to nothing. If tongues, they will cease. If knowledge, it will be brought to nothing. For we know partially and we prophesy partially. But when the perfect comes, the partial will pass away. When I was a child, I used to talk as a child, think as a child, reason as a child. When I became a man, I put aside childish things. At present, we see indistinctly, as in a mirror, but then face to face. At present, I know partially, and then I shall know fully, as I am fully known. So faith, hope, love remain, these three. But the greatest of these is love. So this passage begins with love and ends with love. And perhaps you can see how this passage reminds me of this part of the spread, talking about prophecy and gifts of the Spirit. Now, I don't know if you know, but in Corinthians there are 9 gifts of the Spirit that are listed. One is word of wisdom. Knowledge of spiritual matters. Well, wisdom of spiritual matters, because there is a second one, word of knowledge. The knowledge of spiritual matters. So there is a distinction between wisdom and knowledge. One is more informational, one is more holistically understanding. The third is faith, which makes sense. The fourth, gifts of healing. The ability to heal. Remember, that's also part of the Christian tradition, healing. The fifth is miracles, which could be many things. The sixth is prophecy. Christians are supposed to have the gift of prophecy when open to the Spirit. The 7, distinguishing between spirits, between helpful spirits and unhelpful spirits, perhaps. The 8th is tongues, speaking in tongues, which in some sense might be a kind of mediumship or channeling. And the 9th is interpretation of tongues. Hearing somebody who is speaking in tongues and might not be speaking clearly to the listeners around, that person can hear and translate to the people around. So there are 9 gifts of the Spirit. And some of us have those gifts fully available to us, and some of us have not. There is a veil between us and Spirit. So let's go back to the beginning of that passage. Remember, this passage starts with love and ends with love because love is primary. Love is the core of everything in this universe. Because love, and I begin, never fails. Love never fails. If there are prophecies, they will be brought to nothing. If tongues, they will cease. If knowledge, it will be brought to nothing. What does that mean? That means now there are some of us who have these gifts, but there will be a time when those gifts will no longer be necessary. There will be a time when all have full access to all spiritual knowledge, and therefore these special gifts will come to nothing. They will have no import because everyone will have full access to Spirit. Why? Because the next step, for we know partially and we prophesy partially. However clearly we think we see now, it is only partial vision. Even when we think the veil has been lifted, it has only been lifted a bit. We cannot see now in these bodies as well as we do when we are out of these bodies and have left these bodies and return to our full presence in our spiritual form. We know partially, we prophesy partially. But when the perfect comes, the partial will pass away. When we have surpassed our present state, these partial gifts, these partial prophecies, these partial gifts of knowledge will pass away because we will have surpassed them. And here's an explanation. When I was a child, I used to talk as a child. I used to think as a child, reason as a child. Now, there are some things that children do better than some adults. Children are open. Children are free. Many children, most children, hopefully, are open and free. And we lose some of that innocence as we become adults. However, we do gain other things. We gain a fuller understanding, a fuller ability to reason the things and experiences that we have. We develop. When I became a man, or an adult, let's say, when I became an adult, I put aside childish things. I put aside some of my childish understandings because my understanding now is fuller, is broader, is clearer. So, the understanding of a child and our understanding now, we're comparing those things to our understanding in these human bodies at this present time, and our understanding when we are fully in spirit, when we have left the physical plane and returned to the non-physical, is like being a child now and then becoming an adult. At present, we see indistinctly, as in a mirror, but then face to face. Now what we see is like a reflection, a hazy reflection of the truth. But then, later, after we have either returned to non-physical, or perhaps when the human species has evolved to a point where our understanding is practically that of a non-physical being, then we will see clearly. We will see face to face. Then I shall know fully, as I am known. Because Spirit knows us fully, and we cannot know Spirit fully. But then we will know Spirit as well as Spirit knows us. So faith, hope, love remain. Even then, faith, hope, and love will remain. Even after the gifts of prophecy, of speaking in tongues have passed away, then faith, hope, and love will still remain. These three. And the greatest of these three is love. Okay, so why did I spend all of that time on this? Because this is another way of looking at this same spread of oracle cards. At this present moment, it feels like there is a veil in front of us. There is someone closing our eyes, perhaps. And if it does split just a little bit, we get bowled over because we're not ready. We are not ready to have that knowledge, that insight. And then the next two cards. When we do have that insight, one reaction is sometimes, again, being bowled over. Another one is sometimes to get very analytical, to think of it as a puzzle, as a geometric figure, trying to cipher it, trying to puzzle it out, to work the mysterious into what we understand now, which cannot happen because the way we understand now cannot hold all of the non-physical realm. Our way of understanding cannot encompass spirit. We dive into details, but this is a holistic knowledge. It's a holistic insight that cannot be picked apart. However wonderful our science cannot analyze the non-physical because it is incapable of it. It's like asking a 5-year-old child to describe the detailed workings of the engine of a car. They can't do it. They just cannot do it. Our science cannot describe, and probably never will be able to describe, spirit because they talk completely different languages. So, what do we do? What can we do about that? I think the last card is the answer to that question. The last card shows a person in a seated position, relaxed, mind open with light, and a snake coiled around right beside that person. And that card tells me that we want to allow time to digest and incorporate our insights. We want our insights to be brought within, and like our digestive systems, like the form of a snake, be digested, be broken apart in a sense and then absorbed. Not broken apart analytically, but broken apart biologically and absorbed within our consciousness, our somatic consciousness. Our bodies have a consciousness of their own, a consciousness that can perhaps incorporate these insights much better than our brains can. That is the form of enlightenment. As we incorporate those insights, as we make them part of ourselves, our energetic selves, that is a kind of enlightenment. And the snake also reminds me of Kundalini energy. And that incorporation of insight is sometimes a kind of Kundalini experience. That feeling of understanding rising from our depths, traveling the course of our spines up to the crown chakra, if you will. That is a kind of insight and understanding, a aha moment. So, yeah, we live as though there is a veil before us. And perhaps that veil is here to protect our fragile minds from the immenseness, the magnitude of all that exists in the non-physical. Because we cannot process it all in these brains of ours. And we press against that veil. And sometimes it breaks open a bit and we get knocked over. Or it breaks open a bit and something comes through and we start picking it apart. But instead, if we can bring it in and allow it to become us, that is the process of incorporating and incarnating spiritual insight, which is the process we will continue to be doing until we either leave these bodies or we somehow transcend our present consciousness. Friends, we have 3 sets of cards and 3 questions to answer. So let's move right into the first question. The first question for this first set of cards is, what can I simplify? And we have 2 cards from the Jonasa Jaus Tarot deck, 6th edition. One is the King of Wands, and one is in English, the Ace of Coins, or Ace of Discs. Now, the King of Wands, why do we want to simplify that? The King of Wands is the king, the power that is in command of their creativity and their energy and their passion. Why do we want to simplify that? Well, the king is also the personage of moral strength, of sometimes dogmatism, of power, of determination. So you may be asking, why do I want to simplify that? Why do I want to simplify my moral strength? Well, again, we don't want to get rid of it. We want to simplify it. We want to retain our inner core of moral strength. Certainly, of course. We want to be stable. We want to be centered within our moral understanding. But sometimes our moral strength can become a box that limits us, prevents us from moving. It sometimes makes us a little too rigid. So we want to simplify it to its core essence. Its essence, the essential morality, which keeps us going in the direction we want to go, that keeps us flowing with the powerful force of intention, is a simplified form. The complex, convoluted morality that we sometimes develop for ourselves can be a rigid box for us, and we want to simplify that. We want to simplify our power. We do. We want to keep our power where it belongs, within ourselves. Our power to act within the world, our power to create. But sometimes we try to use our power to control events around us, and that's not where our power should be. Our power should not be trying to control that which is outside of us. We shouldn't be using it to make other people's experiences. We want to simplify it. To simplify our power so that it is moving with us, only with us and for us, along with the powerful current of intention. We want determination, certainly. We want the determination to be open, to stay in the open and vulnerable position of being able to flow with intention. But we don't want that determination to become an anchor for us either. So simplifying our determination, simplifying our moral strength, simplifying our power helps keep us open to insights and revelations from Spirit. We also want to simplify our Ace of Coins, our Ace of Pentacles in some decks, which is a card of concrete aspects of our life. Family, home, money, health. Now, again, we're not saying get rid of your health. We're not saying get rid of your family, but to simplify it. Simplify your relationship with your family. What does that mean? It could mean instead of trying to control or create for your family, allowing them to create and control themselves, simplifying our relationship so that what we have is love and trust and hope and faith, those core emotions. We want to simplify our health so that we trust our bodies. We're not trying to control them, we're not trying to fix them or change them. We trust our bodies and do what is best for our bodies. That is health. That is the simplified form of health. Our homes. Perhaps we want to simplify our home life, the actual contents of our homes. Maybe we want to simplify that. Perhaps there's too much clutter, which prevents us from paying attention to other things because we're keeping up with so much stuff in our lives, in our homes. We also want to simplify our relation to our incarnation. Our incarnation, that's also the ace of coins. Our incarnation, our being here materially, physically in this universe is an ace of coins, an ace of pentacles, an ace of earth experience. And we want to simplify that. The simpler our power, the simpler our physical form and our physical concentration, the more open we can be to flowing with our intention, and the more open we can be to insights and revelations. Let's look at the next set of cards. This question asks, what is working well? What is working well for you? There are things that are working well for you. If you are here in a body and you are breathing, if you have water to drink, if you have a place to sleep, if you have food to eat, those are all things that are working well. Do you have a friend or anyone in your life who you can say that you know and knows you? That is working well. And remember, not all of us have those things. Not all of us have food to eat. Not all of us have a place to sleep. Not all of us have a home to live in. And of course, there are some of us who don't want homes to live in. But of those of us who do not have homes, many of us want them. So if those things are working well for you, that is where we want to place our attention, rather than all the things that we believe are not working well for us. Those jobs we haven't found yet, the relationships that haven't begun, the creation, the artistic creation that we haven't even begun to begin. If we place all or some or even a bit of our attention in that area, we begin to cut ourselves off from the powerful flow of intention, and we begin to thicken the veil between us and the non-physical, between us and the future. We begin to see less the more we focus on things that are not there. Isn't that funny? When we focus on things that are not there, we begin to lose sight of what is there, including the spiritual, including the future, the things that are coming. Because instead of looking at what could be coming, we're looking around saying, well, that's not here, that's not here. Oh, I can't find that, I can't find this. That's a way of cutting ourselves off from both our intention and our insight. So we have two cards answering the question, what is working well? Let's focus on what is working well. The first card is the Three of Wands. The Three of Wands in a Marseille deck can be enthusiastic action. It can be new desire. It may lack a little bit of focus, but new desire. And the accompanying card is the Emperor. And some people don't like the Emperor card. Mean, old, angry, male, father kind of figure, Emperor. A lot of people don't like that card very much. But let's get a fresh insight into that card. The Emperor, even in this deck, which looks like a skeleton sitting on a throne that is encrusted with foliage, like a throne that's been sitting out in the rainforest and it's been taken over by the plants. Even this Emperor has good things to tell us. This is a card of stability. A card of organizing material stuff. It's a card of ordering and structuring. Now, what is working well? What is working well is the pair of these in combination. Too much of one, too much of the other pulls us off balance. When they are two together, then things are working well. When on one hand we've got new desires, new passions, enthusiastic action. Now, if that goes out of control, we begin to get frenetic. That little bit lack of focus draws us completely out of focus, and we shoot off somewhere off to the side instead of moving forward. On the other hand, if we have too much structure, too much control, too much organization, it can become rigid and we can become immobile. What we want, what is working well, is when we've got both. When we've got the new, when we've got the curiosity, when we've got the interest to do, to create. And we can organize that. We can organize our manifestation of those creative impulses, those insights into our physical experience. The balance of the Emperor and the Three of Wands, when we can get to that sweet spot of balancing the both of them, then things are really working well. Then we are moving. We know we are moving. We can feel that we are moving forward with the powerful flow of intention. And when we are doing that, then we are available, much more available, to insights and inspiration from the fullness of the non-physical realm. Let's look at the next set of cards. The next set of cards asks the question, what do I value? What do you value? We value many things. And it's interesting that the two cards answering the question of what do I value? Not value. Value can have many interpretations, but one of them is price, is appreciation of value, of the worth, of the value of something. Now, value has a much broader meaning, of course, but it's interesting that the two responding cards to this question are both disc cards, the material, earth cards, the sometimes coins cards. And it's not talking about money. We're not only talking about money. But what do I value? The first card is the King of Coins, the King of Diamonds, the King of Pentacles. Wisdom, trust, working with others to co-create. We value those things. Confidence and security, physical security. Because, do you know Maslow, Abraham Maslow, has a hierarchy of needs. And before we can reach for the highest peak of self-actualization, we need to have the base needs, the security, the physical security, the emotional security, before we can develop towards self-actualization. So, what do I value? I value my security, because that is the base from which I develop. I value looking for new ventures, for new things to create, and at the same time maintaining what I have already created. Now, the King of Pentacles is the king that is a little bit conservative because we want to conserve what we have. Now, there are some things we want to clear away, we want to simplify, but we don't want to clear everything away, to wipe everything away and start afresh from ground zero every time we want to create something new. We want to build upon what we have created. Keeping it simple, keeping it streamlined, but building upon what we have already created. So we do want to conserve what we have created that is still valuable for us, and we value those things. And then on the side of him is the 10 of coins. Also, both of them to me are the highest level of their part of the deck. Yeah, the king is the highest level to me of the court cards for the pentacles. The 10 of coins is the highest card of the numbered cards for the pentacles, for the coins. So we've got those two highest points of their individual sections. And we value those. The 10 of coins, the 10 of pentacles in this deck, moving non-physical energy into the physical. Success and abundance. We can value those things. We are perfectly able to value our success and our abundance. We came into these bodies. We incarnated to experience this physical realm. We came here for a purpose, and that purpose is to enjoy our physicality. Our purpose is to enjoy our experience of the physical. And part of enjoying that is recognizing and valuing our abundance. Part of that is recognizing and valuing our success. Every breath you take is a successful breath. From the breath you take to the life you build, every bit of that is a success. And when you feel like you're failing, it's not a failure, you have just taken one more step towards learning to succeed. So, what do we value in these bodies? As we incarnate every moment of our lives, as we incarnate, as we incorporate the insights that we receive and incarnate them, we value our carnateness. We value our physicality. We value our ability to work within that physicality with other physical creatures, because all of this physical stuff is a co-creation. So being the King of Pentacles is something to be valued, to be able to work in concert, co-creating our experiences in this physical realm is something truly to be valued. And when we can value those things, when we value our experience and what we can do in these bodies, in this world, then we know that we are open to insight. We know that we are flowing with our intentions, which is, I think, the point to all of this. I've heard a teacher say that the purpose of life is joy, and I fully believe that. Love is the power to create, to co-create. Our purpose of doing that is the joy of doing it. Well-being is the base on which we do that all. And pure awareness is our understanding of the entirety, the holistic experience. What do you value? Can you give your attention to those things that you do value, that are here in your experience? What is working well? Can you, for the most part, give your attention to those things so that those things can grow and multiply? What can you simplify so that you can focus better on what is working well and you can value what is there? When things are cluttered, we can't value things very well. Things don't work very well. And when we have all of that in line, we are so much more ready to experience the veil parting, even just a crack, of getting a spiritual insight, and then having the strength and the ability and the space to incorporate it, to incarnate it. What do you think, friends? Does this make any sense to you? This is something that I am processing right now as I'm talking about it. Has it struck anything for you? I'd love to hear about that. So, friends, if you feel inspired, hit the like button. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed yet, and hit the alarm bell. Make sure your alarms are turned on so that you get the alarms. And also share this with anyone who you think might find it interesting, might feel stimulated by it. And comment below. I'd like to hear from you. What do you think? Have you had those moments of insight? I've had one. I remember one of the most profound insights was the simplest. I was going up a mountain here in Korea. I'm a little bit afraid of heights. I'm a little bit afraid of unstable ground. So the very peak, what the last 10 meters maybe, was rather loose rock. So going up that part made me feel very insecure. And the wind was blowing, which made me feel even more insecure. It was a very, very cloudy day. And I got up to the peak. And I leaned back and I clutched the rock for a moment until I could relax a little bit. And I felt secure in my seated position. And I looked up, and at that moment, the clouds parted a little bit and the sun shone through in such a way that you could see the rays of sunlight. Have you ever seen that? Where the clouds are still there a little bit, so you see the rays of light coming through the mist. The light and the rays coming down towards you. And at that moment, I felt so open, so enlightened. I'm not going to say that I'm an enlightened master. I'm not saying that. I felt enlightened. I felt open. I felt broken open. Not broken apart, but broken open to the divine, to contact with the divine. Have you had experiences like that? It doesn't have to be on a mountain and bright sunlight. It could be in the middle of the forest, in the dark, and you've suddenly just felt connected to everything that was around you. Have you had those moments? I'd love to hear that. How did you incorporate those? Were you able to incorporate those? Have you boxed that off as a separate experience that has had no effect in your life? Or have you been able to digest them and made them part of you, of your psyche, of your somatic mind? Have you been able to incorporate them and incarnate that insight in some way? I'd love to hear about that in the comments below. And friends, as always, there will be a little information about the decks in just a moment. And I wish you love, joy, well-being, and pure awareness. Thank you.